This presentation is going to give you an overview of the Progressive Era, which is the first major topic that we're going to cover this year. Should give you a lot of knows and hopefully quite a few need-to-knows. So let's start by talking about what was the Progressive Era. It was a time period in American history where a lot of people, mostly in the middle class, were trying to solve a lot of the problems caused by the Industrial Revolution. When did all this take place? Mostly between 1880 and 1920. So what is it that was happening in the United States? It's called industrialization. It's when the United States went from a country of mostly farmers to a more industrialized nation, factories, businesses, and cities. It really changed a lot of things, some for the good, some for the bad. And what were those positive things? The Industrial Revolution transformed the United States into an industrial power, an international power. It created great technologies, vast urban areas. It increased the production of goods, created millions of jobs, created vast amounts of wealth, and attracted millions of immigrants to come to the United States and expand our population significantly. But with industrialization came a lot of negatives. Government corruption, business owners were very powerful, the poor working conditions and low wages for most workers, child labor was in effect. There was a huge gap that existed between the rich and the poor. Cities were crowded. There was a lot of anti-immigrant attitudes and a lot of very strong racist and prejudicial attitudes towards non-whites. So who are the progressives who are going to try to solve these problems? Women made up a very large amount of the progressive movement. Women wanted changes for themselves too and became very active in the progressive movement. Two major issues they were concerned with was winning the right to vote as well as prohibition. Another group that was very important in the progressive movement were writers. Most of the things that were happening people didn't know about, so we need writers, authors, reporters, and what you'll learn as muckrakers to uncover these stories and inform the public as to what's really going on. Presidents. There are three presidents that are very important in the Progressive Era. The first one is President Theodore Roosevelt, my favorite and the most important of the three. He was followed by William Howard Taft, who was a little less progressive, and then followed up by President Woodrow Wilson, who was even a little less progressive and kind of racist, as we'll learn. African Americans played a very big role in the Progressive Era, and it's when the NAACP was first formed. Leaders like W.E.B. Du Bois, Booker T. Washington, and Ida B. Wells Barnett played an extremely important role in bringing to attention issues of African Americans. Unions formed by workers to fight for their rights, improve their working conditions and wages, and farmers also organized in order to help their very struggling economy in the American heartland. So what are some positive things we're going to learn about? The government became more powerful as far as regulating businesses and improving and helping the working class people. The wages went up, working conditions got better, women are going to get the right to vote, living conditions are going to improve, and public education is also something that's going to happen as well. Some of the negatives. Progressives didn't solve all the problems that they tried to, and in fact, a lot of them had some pretty negative opinions about people who were not white. Segregation, discrimination, and other issues are going to pop up during the Progressive Era that we're going to have to solve later on down the road. So why does it matter? The gap between the rich and the poor that began the Progressive Era still exists today. CEOs make 185 times more money than the average worker. Why else does it matter? If you're going to go out and get a job anytime soon, the government can control the hours and the wages that you make as a minor, something that progressives wanted to do. Why else does it matter? Well, you're sitting in the classroom because you're required by law to do so. You have to go to school till you're 18 years old. What did you eat today? Did you take any medication? Those food products were approved by the FDA, another very important part of the Progressive Era. The building that you're sitting in has fire and safety codes. These are things that didn't exist before the Progressive Era, as you're going to learn in this project. Also, minimum wage. How much money do you make? That all comes from the Progressive Era. Progressives wanted a minimum wage. And also probably one of the most important components is women gained the right to vote. So, the Progressive Era brought a lot of big changes to the United States, and anybody can do this, and that's part of what we want you to understand. Anybody can make changes. Everybody can access their voice and use their power. What changes are you going to make?
Created using Powtoon.